As a miserable corporate drone, my only way to decompress is to unwind at a bar after work. Who would have thought that on my very first time, I'd run into my direct supervisor? Seeing those familiar eyes behind his mask made me want to run. But the moment I moved, he grabbed my waist, pulling me close. Silas, running away so soon? Kiss and run. You've got the wrong person, I blurted out. His grip tightened teasingly. Wrong person? Let's try another kiss just to be sure. Later, when I tried to escape again, he blocked the door. Looking for some fun? Yeah. Play with me. Unthrilling enough. Just then, my friend tapped my shoulder, eyes gleaming with mischief. I laughed dryly. A mask doesn't make an ugly guy handsome, it just raises the stakes. What's wrong? Don't you like surprises? I shook my head. No use arguing. He adjusted his mask and vanished into the crowd. I wasn't here to find a hookup, just to relax. My job pays well, and it's decent, but the boss is relentless. Work consumes him always, and I'm stuck as his right hand. When he works, I work. When he travels, I follow. Every morning, I wake feeling drained and hopeless. To keep from burning out, I tried many ways to relax. Eventually, I found that hitting a bar and drinking works best. Plus, it builds my tolerance so I don't need excuses at company dinners. I come here often. Plenty have tried to flirt with me, but none caught my interest. Tonight was a masquerade party. Everyone hyped about the mystery, blind box, dating game. But honestly, if I can't find someone I like face to face, a blind date is hopeless. I plan to sip a little and go home early, since work awaited me tomorrow. Just a quick drink. But luck seems to favor me. Just as I was about to leave, I bumped straight into a dream of a man. His mask hid his face, but I felt the strength in his arms. My heart raced, my feet planted firmly. No way was I leaving now. I returned to my seat, catching the bartender's surprised glance. Weren't you leaving? I smiled, eyes locked on the man in the center of the dance floor. The prize just showed up. Looks like I'm staying a bit longer. People kept trying to approach him, but he brushed them off easily. He was clearly not easy to impress. He was dressed simply, a white shirt and suit pants, but his broad shoulders and sculpted muscles made him stand out. I licked my lips nervously and moved closer. As I got near, he leaned down, lips near my ear. Can I help you? I froze, caught off guard. Could I ask for his number? Or suggest we get to know each other? His scent was strong and clear even in the crowd. Time to take a chance. Want to kiss? I whispered. He straightened and stared at me through his mask, silent but not dismissive. I stepped back, expecting rejection, but before I could leave, he wrapped an arm around my waist and pressed his lips to mine. It wasn't gentle. He even nipped my lip like a playful punishment. I was stunned, eyes wide open. Surprisingly, he didn't close his either. Close enough, I noticed a red mole beneath his eye, just like my boss's. It hit me hard. This was no stranger. This was him, Damien, my demanding, work-obsessed boss. Before I could react, his lips left mine and he whispered with a teasing tone. Assistant Sterling, satisfied with my kissing? How did I get into this mess? Lust really is dangerous. I pushed him away, ready to run, but Damien grabbed my arm with a smirk. Not going to take responsibility? Just run off. I gritted my teeth. It was only a kiss. Why was this such a big deal? If he's serious, why is he here at a bar? But the bigger worry wasn't responsibility. It was keeping my identity secret. He's a pain to work for, obsessed with overtime and trips, but the salary is unbeatable. I don't care for flowers, but I sure love cash. I really couldn't afford to lose this job right now. So, I said firmly, Sir, you've got the wrong person. My last name isn't Sterling. Damien smiled slightly, but didn't loosen his grip. Is that so? Then why are you trying to run? I forced a lie. It was just a kiss. You want me to take responsibility for it? Isn't that too much? If I don't want to be responsible, can't I just walk away? I tried to pull free, but as soon as I relaxed my hold, he wrapped his arm tighter around my waist, pulling me even closer. I collided with his hard chest, his muscles painfully solid beneath me. If he weren't Damien Blackwood, I'd probably be thrilled by a body like that. But he was, and that made everything worse. So if I've got the wrong person, does that mean we're just strangers? I wasn't sure what he was up to, but I nodded cautiously. Immediately, he leaned in again, voice low and teasing. In that case, let's kiss once more. What? Was he crazy? The first kiss was a mistake. I was blinded by desire and didn't realize who he was. Now, knowing, how could I risk another? I must be out of my mind. As he moved closer, I shoved him back hard and bolted for the exit. The bar owner is a friend, so I didn't even settle my tab. I just ran, planning to Venmo him later. Just as I reached my apartment complex gate, my phone buzzed. Damien, workaholic boss. Silas, was that really not you just now? My hands shook as I typed back. Me? Sir, what do you mean? Workaholic boss. Nothing. Where are you? Me? At home. Already in bed, about to sleep. Any urgent work? Damien went silent for a minute, then replied. Workaholic boss. Nothing. Rest well. Me? Okay, you too, sir. I switched off my phone and entered the building, glancing behind me to make sure I wasn't being followed. After a shower, I collapsed into bed. My dream guy? It was my boss. That was harder to swallow than losing my bonus. But maybe I'd fooled him. Maybe Damien wasn't suspicious anymore. Even if he was, I wouldn't admit anything. As long as I kept quiet, he had no power over me. Deny it till the end. I'd even rehearsed answers for any questions he might throw at me at work. But when I showed up the next day, he acted like nothing happened. Strange. Still, he tested me in subtle ways. Silas, didn't you say you'd go to bed early? Didn't sleep well? Yeah, whose fault is that? And later, Silas, your lip is chapped. Have you been eating right? Whose fault is that? That damn dog bite. I didn't dare say any of this aloud. Just gave reasonable answers and he stopped pressing. But he probably believed me, or just didn't want to dig deeper. That's adult life. As long as you don't pry too much, people won't make a fuss. I couldn't lose this job. Damien probably wasn't eager to fire a dependable assistant either. Life settled into an odd calm. But I wasn't brave enough to return to that bar. After about 2 weeks, I found a new place, high-end, farther from home. There was no way I'd be unlucky enough to run into him again, right? I stepped inside. It felt different. The air was fresher. Since that night, I no longer tried to chat anyone up. Mostly I just sat, swaying to the music, sipping drinks. But the drinks were stronger here. Before I knew it, someone sidled up, making it clear he wanted more than conversation. I refused, but he wouldn't take no for an answer. I pushed him away, ready to leave, when he grabbed me. Before I could react, a hand shot out from behind, twisting the man's wrist sharply. He cried out in pain. My mind cleared immediately. Damien Blackwood again. Did I break some cosmic rule? How do I keep running into him? I don't know how Damien handled the guy, but soon he was gripping my face, his expression dark. Is drinking all you think about? Coming to places like this alone? I tried to push him off, but it was useless. So, drunk and defiant, I threw a fit. Thus, I love drinking. What's wrong with that? Then he dragged me out. I remembered I hadn't paid my tab. I haven't paid yet. He shoved me into his car. I paid for you. Sit still. I sat and soon I was at his place. Before me a spread of alcohol. You love drinking? Then drink up. Even fuzzy-headed, I knew if I kept drinking here, I might never leave. No, I don't want to drink anymore. I swear I won't. His cold gaze was terrifying. If you don't want to drink, then what were you doing at the bar? I fidgeted. Should I tell the truth? Speak. Don't be coy. To relieve stress. Stress? Yeah, Mr. Blackwood, don't you know how stressful it is working for you? Without some way to relax, I'll die at this job. He hadn't expected that. For a brief moment, guilt flickered in his eyes. So, that night, that was why? Yeah. Looks like my disguise didn't fool him after all. He'd known, but hadn't called me out. Oh, I get it. Actually, there was more to it, but I didn't dare say. If I told the whole truth, I'd be the one feeling guilty. So I let him misunderstand. And he didn't press. He even drove me home. On the way home, I suddenly realized the new bar I'd found was right near Damien's house. So much for choosing a new spot. Turns out I'd just walked into a trap. Back home, I thought about what I'd said to Damien at his place. Liquid courage really does wonders. If I'd been sober, I never would have dared say those things, even if he'd asked. I had practically yelled at him. I wondered if tomorrow I'd get fired for some ridiculous reason, like stepping into the office with the wrong foot. But tomorrow's problems could wait. When I arrived at work, not only did Damien have no intention of firing me, he'd actually taken my words seriously. The endless overtime stopped, and I was even leaving on time most days. It felt almost too good to be true, like the company was on the brink of collapse. But when my new paycheck arrived, I knew I was just overthinking. The company wasn't dying. Damien had just softened. A month passed like this. Then came another business trip. This time, Damien brought only me. "Sir, are you sure you don't want to bring anyone else?" I asked. He glanced at me, a smirk playing on his lips. "What, not confident in yourself? A man can't say no to that." "No, I'm confident. But one is enough." Hearing that, I felt valued, trusted by my boss. It was a good feeling, honestly. The project was important, so we met with the client as soon as we landed. I had prepared most of the materials beforehand and shown them to Damien. The negotiations went smoothly, with most details settled quickly. But some formalities meant we had to stay a little longer. "Don't drink too much at the banquet tonight," Damien warned in the elevator. I nodded enthusiastically. No chance of me getting drunk this time. After 2 bar incidents, I was done. Twice was enough. No third time. But then, someone at the banquet was bold enough to drug Damien. And of course, we both ended up drinking from the same glass. Actually, it was meant for me alone, but Damien snatched the other half from my hand and downed it like it was nothing. "My assistant gets wild when drunk, so I'll finish it," he said. I don't know how wild I got, but we definitely crossed the line. What are the odds of not getting fired after sleeping with your boss? The next morning, my tired eyes opened to see him still asleep beside me. His arm wrapped tightly around my waist, completely trapping me. I was awake but couldn't escape. He gave me no chance. I didn't remember much from the night before. After all, that drug was strong. But one thing was clear. I was the one who'd gotten taken advantage of. That meant later, I could probably get some kind of compensation from Damien. At least, I hoped I wouldn't lose my job. While I was lost in these thoughts, Damien woke and our eyes met. All the words I'd planned to say vanished. Then he flipped the script on me. "Then under a lot of stress? I reduced your workload already. Or has drinking stopped helping?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. "So now, sleeping with me is your new way to relieve stress?" "No, sir, last night wasn't what you think." "Not what I think. Last night, I tried pushing you away, but you clung to me and even kissed me first. I may look muscular, but honestly, I can't resist if you force me." All show and no strength? But feeling sore all over, I doubted him. "Or are you planning to be irresponsible like last time when you kissed me?" That was exactly my plan. What happens if I refuse to take responsibility? Damien sat up, completely naked, revealing red marks all over his body. Had I really left that much evidence? I glanced at myself and realized my own body wasn't much better. Don't want to be responsible? No problem. This isn't your first time. Did you see me make a fuss last time? Right, he hadn't. I stared at his muscular form, recalling how it felt last night. I licked my lips nervously. Can I really get away without being responsible? I don't know why I kept asking. Maybe I wanted to hear a different answer, or maybe I was just conflicted. I guess it was because I was still lusting after him. Damn it. How low had I fallen? Just then, his phone started buzzing like crazy. After scrambling, he found it buried in a pile of clothes. It was a call from our business partner. Crap. We hadn't signed the contract yet. I jumped out of bed, ignoring the lack of clothes, grabbed what was on the floor. But the clothes were ruined. No idea how rough last night had been. I frowned, trying to figure out what to do. Go shower first. I'll grab you some clothes. I hadn't expected that. This isn't the time to be picky. Hey, sir. You can shower first, or we'll be late. I didn't argue. This wasn't the moment to think about boss and employee roles. In the bathroom, I caught my reflection and nearly fainted. Compared to Damien's marks, mine looked mild. That bastard had really gone all out. No time to dwell. I showered quickly, wincing as I cleaned myself. He must have at least helped with some cleanup, because I felt surprisingly fresh. When I emerged, Damien was already dressed. No time for awkwardness. I threw on the clothes, tidied up, and we headed out. At the meeting, no matter who was behind the drugging, we had to apologize before investigating. Given Damien's status, the client wasn't upset. We picked up the discussion right where we left off. Still, I felt off standing there. They could sit and talk business, but as an assistant, I didn't have that luxury. I could only stand aside and wait. With the tension easing, the discomfort in my body hit me fully. My legs shook, my back ached, and when my eyes landed on Damien's arms, I was suddenly reminded of things better left unsaid from last night. My mind raced, my cheeks flushed, and I quickly looked away, staring down at the floor and counting invisible ants. Silas, find a seat and rest. Mr. Harrison and I still have some business to finish. I was caught off guard. I met Damien's gaze and nodded quickly before heading to a chair across the room. As I walked away, I overheard the partner teasing Damien about being so considerate of his assistant. I didn't catch Damien's reply, but I'm sure it wasn't flattering, at least not for me. Once their meeting ended, Damien came to fetch me. We both carefully avoided mentioning last night, whether from reluctance or uncertainty. For me, that was a relief. Now that the shock had worn off, I realized how wild my thoughts had been that morning. I had actually considered taking responsibility. Could I? Damien clearly never expected me to. Thank goodness I kept those thoughts to myself. If I'd spoken them aloud, I'd be packing my things and quitting as soon as we got back. I'll have someone look into the drugging incident. Don't worry, you'll get a proper explanation. Okay. Damien fell silent again. But when I glanced his way, I noticed marks on his neck peeking out from under his collar. My scalp tingled. Why hadn't I been more careful last night? I wanted to warn him about the marks, but feared it would bring back memories he might rather forget. Forget it. I'd pretend I hadn't noticed. Besides, no one would suspect me. Yes, no one would. Later that evening, the contract was signed, finally and successfully. The other party suggested a celebration banquet. At first, we suspected they were behind the drugging, but judging by their behavior now, that seemed unlikely. Otherwise, they wouldn't have invited us again. I glanced at Damien, expecting a refusal, but he nodded and accepted immediately. Strange. Wasn't he worried about getting set up again? He looked full of energy, while I was ready to collapse from exhaustion. We'd both been up all night. How was his stamina still so strong? He didn't show any signs of discomfort. I doubted his earlier claim again. But if you forced me, I can't resist. What nonsense. His muscular body wasn't built on empty words. And I wasn't stupid. I knew he'd been hitting the gym regularly. No wonder he was such a convincing liar, the perfect capitalist. Don't drink tonight. You don't have to cover for me. Find a seat somewhere. I'll call when I'm ready to leave. I looked at Damien, confused. If he wanted me to rest, why not just let me head back to the hotel? Why keep me here? But when the boss speaks, you obey. Sir, you should also be careful with your drinks. I knew as soon as I said that, Damien would want to discuss last night. But I didn't give him the chance. I walked away immediately, found a quiet corner, grabbed some food, and sank onto the sofa, rubbing my sore back. Thank goodness I was used to sleeping on hard beds. My back was holding up. The weight dragged on. By the time Damien came for me, I was already asleep. He woke me gently, and I followed him drowsily to the hotel upstairs. Get a good rest tonight. No need to wake early tomorrow. And remember to apply the cream. He pressed the bag into my hand. His cool fingers brushed mine, snapping my mind awake. I glanced down and blushed at the contents. Quickly I closed the bag. There, I know, sir. I'll head back now. You should rest early too. I turned, opened my door, and didn't give him a chance to speak. I rushed inside, locked the door behind me, leaving him outside. What a mess. It all started with that kiss. How did it spiral to this? Could we ever go back to how things were? There was no time to ponder. Silently, I changed, showered, and applied the cream. I cursed Damien a few more times. Then finally, I sank into exhausted sleep. The hotel room was quiet, save for the hum of the air conditioning. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the events of the past few days replaying like a fever dream. My body ached, a dull reminder of last night's chaos, but my mind was louder, screaming questions I didn't dare answer. How had a single kiss at a bar turned my life into this tangled mess? And why, despite everything, did my heart race at the thought of Damien's touch? Morning came too soon. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, and I groaned, dragging myself out of bed. The cream Damien had given me sat on the nightstand, a silent accusation. I applied it quickly, avoiding my reflection in the mirror. The marks on my body were fading, but the ones in my mind felt permanent. At breakfast, Damien was already at the hotel restaurant, looking infuriatingly composed in a crisp suit. His eyes flicked up as I approached, and a familiar smirk tugged at his lips. Sleep well, Silas? Like a rock, I lied, sliding into the seat across from him. My coffee cup became my shield, something to focus on besides his piercing gaze. He leaned forward, voice low. You sure? You look like you wrestled a bear last night. I choked on my coffee, heat flooding my face. Just jet lag, I muttered, hoping he'd drop it. He didn't. Jelida? Or maybe you're still recovering from other activities. I shot him a glare, but his eyes sparkled with mischief. Damn him. He was enjoying this far too much. The day was packed with follow-up meetings, and I threw myself into work, grateful for the distraction. Damien was in his element, commanding the room with that effortless charisma that made clients eat out of his hand. I took notes, organized documents, and avoided his gaze whenever possible. But every time he brushed past me, handing me a file, leaning in to point out a detail, my skin prickled, memories of his lips and hands flashing unbidden. By evening, we were back at the hotel, and Damien suggested dinner at a quiet rooftop restaurant. Just us, he said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I wanted to refuse, but the word no stuck in my throat. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe it was something else entirely. The restaurant was intimate, with soft lighting and a view of the city skyline. Damien ordered wine, and I stepped to water, determined to keep my head clear. He raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. So, he began, swirling his glass, are we going to keep pretending last night didn't happen? My fork froze halfway to my mouth. I'm not pretending anything, I said, voice tight. There was a mistake. A drugged mistake. The smile was slow, dangerous. Was it? You seemed pretty enthusiastic. I wanted to throw my napkin at him. You're impossible. And you're avoiding the point. He leaned closer, elbows on the table. You kissed me first, Silas. Twice, if we're counting the bar. My cheeks burned. The bar was a mistake too. I didn't know it was you. But you do now. His voice dropped, low and intimate. And you're still here. I opened my mouth to argue, but nothing came out. He wasn't wrong. I could have quit, walked away, found another job. But I hadn't. And deep down I knew why. The rest of dinner passed in a haze of tension, his teasing remarks and my deflections creating a strange dance. By the time we returned to the hotel, my nerves were frayed, and I was ready to lock myself in my room again. But Damien stopped me in the hallway, his hand brushing my arm. Silas, he said softly, I'm not your enemy. I looked up, caught off guard by the sincerity in his eyes. For once, there was no smirk, no playful edge. Just him. I know, I whispered, then turned and fled to my room before I could say something I'd regret. The business trip ended without further incident, but the tension between us lingered like a storm cloud. Back at the office, I expected things to return to normal, or at least, our version of normal. But Damien had other ideas. He started small. A coffee on my desk in the morning, my favorite blend. A subtle shift in his tone during meetings, less demanding and more collaborative. He even stopped scheduling late-night work sessions, giving me evenings to myself. It was unnerving, like he was trying to rewrite the rules of our relationship without telling me. I didn't trust it. People like Damien didn't change overnight, and I wasn't naive enough to think he was doing this out of the goodness of his heart. He wanted something. The question was what? One afternoon, he called me into his office. I braced myself, expecting another round of teasing or worse, a confrontation about the trip. Instead, he handed me a folder. New project, he said, leaning back in his chair. You're leading it. I blinked, caught off guard. Me? Led? You've been my right hand for years, Silas. You know the company better than anyone. It's time you stepped up. I opened the folder, scanning the details. It was a high-profile client, a deal that could make or break our quarter. The responsibility was enormous, and the trust he was placing in me felt heavy. Why me? I asked, unable to keep the suspicion out of my voice. He met my gaze, unflinching. Because you're good. And I trust you. There was again that sincerity that threw me off balance. I nodded, clutching the folder like a lifeline, and left his office before I could overthink it. Leading the project was exhilarating and terrifying. I threw myself into it, working late not because Damien demanded it, but because I wanted to prove I could handle it. He was there, of course, offering guidance without hovering, his presence a steady anchor. But every time our hands brushed over a document or our eyes met during a meeting, the air crackled with unspoken words. One night, after everyone else had left, I stayed behind to finish a presentation. Damien appeared at my desk, 2 takeout containers in hand. Thought you might be hungry, he said, setting one down. I eyed the food warily. You're being weirdly nice. He laughed, the sound low and warm. Maybe I'm trying to make up for being a stressful boss. I snorted, opening the container. Good luck with that. We ate in silence, the office quiet except for the hum of my computer. It felt strangely comfortable, like we'd done this 100 times. But then he spoke, and the ease shattered. Silas, about the trip. I froze, chopsticks halfway to my mouth. Can we not? I'm not trying to push you, he said, his voice gentle. But we can't keep pretending it didn't happen. Not when it's changing things. I set the chopsticks down, my appetite gone. What's changing, Damien? You're my boss. I'm your assistant. That's the deal. Is it? He leaned forward, eyes searching mine. Because it doesn't feel like that anymore. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to hold his gaze. What do you want from me? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stood, walked around the desk, and stopped just close enough for me to feel the heat of his presence. I want you to stop running. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. I'm not running. Then why do I feel like I'm chasing you? Before I could respond, he stepped back, breaking the moment. Finish your food. I'll see you tomorrow. He left, and I sat there, staring at the takeout, my mind a chaotic mess. The project consumed my days, but Damien consumed my nights. Dreams of his hands, his voice, his lips haunted me, blurring the line between desire and dread. I told myself it was just lust, a lingering effect of that drugged night, but the truth was messy. I liked the way he looked at me now, not as an assistant, but as something more. He didn't push though. Not overtly. He was careful, calculated, giving me space while subtly closing the distance. A lingering glance here, a brush of fingers there. It was maddening, and I hated how much I craved it. One evening, he invited me to a charity gala as his +1. It's good for networking, he said, but the way his eyes lingered on me suggested otherwise. I agreed, telling myself it was professional, but when I saw him in a tailored tuxedo, my resolve wavered. The gala was a whirlwind of champagne and small talk, but Damien stayed close, his hand occasionally grazing my back. Each touch sent a jolt through me, and by the time we stepped onto the dance floor, I was a bundle of nerves. You're tense, he murmured, his hand firm on my waist as we swayed to the music. You're not helping, I shot back, but my voice lacked conviction. He chuckled, pulling me closer. Relax, Silas. It's just a dance. But it wasn't. Not with his breath warm against my ear, his body pressed against mine. I could feel the strength in his arms, the same strength that had pinned me down that night. My face heated, and I prayed he couldn't feel my racing pulse. Why do you keep doing this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Doing what? Making it impossible to forget. His grip tightened, just enough to make my breath hitch. Maybe I don't want you to forget. I pulled back, meeting his gaze. His eyes were dark, intense, and for a moment, I saw something raw, something that scared me as much as it thrilled me. The song ended, and I stepped away, needing air. He let me go, but his gaze followed me as I retreated to the balcony. Outside, the cool night air calmed my nerves. I leaned against the railing, trying to make sense of the chaos in my chest. I wanted him, God, I wanted him, but he was my boss. My life was already a mess. This could only make it worse. Footsteps behind me. I didn't turn, but I knew it was him. Silas, he said, his voice soft but firm. Talk to me. I shook my head, staring at the city lights. I can't do this, Damien. Not with you. Why not? Because you're my boss. I spun to face him, frustration spilling over. Because I need this job, and I can't afford to screw it up over whatever this is. He stepped closer, undeterred. And what if I told you I'd never let you lose your job? That I'd protect you, no matter what? I laughed bitterly. You can't promise that. You don't control everything. Maybe not, he admitted, but I try. For you. The sincerity in his voice hit me like a punch. I wanted to believe him, but trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. I need time, I said finally, my voice barely audible. He nodded, stepping back. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. The gala marked a shift. Damien didn't push, but he didn't back off either. He was a constant presence, a magnetic force I couldn't escape. Work became a battleground, not of conflict, but of restraint. Every meeting, every shared coffee, every late-night strategy session tested my resolve. The project I was leading was a success, earning praise from clients and colleagues alike. Damien celebrated by taking the team out for drinks, but his eyes were on me the entire night. I stuck to soda, hyper-aware of his proximity, his occasional touches disguised as casual gestures. After, he offered to drive me home. I hesitated, but the alternative was a long subway ride, and I was exhausted. In the car, the silence was heavy, charged with everything we weren't saying. "You did good," he said finally, glancing at me. "I knew you could handle it." "Thanks," I muttered, staring out the window. "I had a good teacher." He laughed softly. "Flattery won't get you out of this, Silas." "Out of what?" "This." He gestured vaguely between us. "Whatever you're trying so hard to ignore." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "I'm not ignoring it. I'm just trying to be smart." "Smart," he repeated, his tone unreadable. "Is that what you call running from me?" "I'm not running," I snapped, turning to face him. "I'm trying to keep my life from falling apart." His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "And you think I'd let that happen? You don't get it, do you?" My voice rose, frustration boiling over. "You're my boss, Damien. You have power over me. If this goes wrong, I'm the one who pays the price." He pulled the car over, the sudden stop jarring. "You think I'd hurt you?" His voice was low, almost wounded. "Not on purpose," I said, softer now. "But it's not just about you. It's about me. My career, my future. I can't risk it all on a feeling." He was silent for a long moment, his jaw tight. Then he nodded, starting the car again. "Fair enough." The rest of the drive was quiet, and when we reached my apartment, I hesitated before getting out. "Thanks for the ride." "Anytime," he said, his voice neutral but his eyes saying more. I didn't sleep that night. His words echoed in my head, mingling with the memory of his touch. I was falling for him, and it terrified me. Weeks passed, and the tension between us grew unbearable. Damien was relentless in his subtle pursuit, never crossing the line, but always pushing it. A lingering touch, a knowing smile, a comment that carried more weight than it should. I was unraveling, and he knew it. One evening, we were the last ones in the office, working on a tight deadline. The air was thick with exhaustion and something else, something electric. I was at my desk, typing furiously, when he appeared behind me, his hands resting lightly on my shoulders. "You're killing it," he said, his voice low. "But you need to relax." I tensed under his touch, my heart racing. "I'm fine." "You're not." His fingers pressed gently, massaging the knots in my shoulders. "You're carrying too much." I closed my eyes, the warmth of his hands seeping into me. "Damien, don't." "Don't what?" His voice was closer now, his breath brushing my ear. "Care about you?" I turned, meeting his gaze, and the intensity in his eyes stole my breath. "This is a bad idea," I whispered, but my resolve was crumbling. "Then tell me to stop," he said, his hand sliding to my jaw, thumb brushing my cheek. "Tell me you don't want this." I opened my mouth, but no words came. Instead, I leaned forward, closing the distance, and kissed him. It was different from the bar, different from the drugged haze of the trip. This was deliberate, raw, a collision of want and fear. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer, and I lost myself in the heat of him, the taste of him. When we finally pulled apart, panting, his forehead rested against mine. "No running this time," he murmured. I laughed shakily. "I'm not running." "Good." He kissed me again, softer this time, and I knew there was no going back. Waking up in Damien's bed was surreal. The morning light filtered through his curtains, casting shadows across his sleeping form. He looked softer in sleep, the sharp edges of his intensity smoothed out. I traced the lines of his face with my eyes, my heart a tangled mess of hope and fear. Last night had been overwhelming. Not just physically, though that had been intense, but emotionally. Every touch, every whispered word had felt like a promise, and I wasn't sure I was ready for what that meant. He stirred, his eyes fluttering open, and a slow smile spread across his face. "Morning." "Morning," I echoed, my voice hoarse. He reached for me, pulling me close, and I let myself sink into his warmth. "No regrets?" he asked, his tone light but his eyes searching. I hesitated, then shook my head. "Not yet." He chuckled, kissing my forehead. "I'll take that." We spent the morning in a lazy haze, talking about nothing and everything. For the first time, I saw Damien not as my boss, but as a man, flawed, vulnerable, and dangerously captivating. He told me about his childhood, his drive to succeed, the loneliness that came with it. I shared pieces of myself too, things I'd never told anyone. But reality loomed. We couldn't stay in this bubble forever. Work awaited, and with it, the complications of what we'd done. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away, his fingers tracing patterns on my arm. We figure it out. Together. I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at me. And if it doesn't work? He tilted my chin up, forcing me to meet his gaze. Then we deal with that too. But I'm not letting you go, Silas. Not unless you want me to. My heart stuttered. I don't. Then we're in this, he said, his voice firm. No matter what. Returning to work was like stepping into a minefield. I was hyper-aware of every glance, every whisper, convinced everyone could see the truth written on my face. Damien was professional as ever, but his occasional glances held a warmth that made my pulse race. Rumors started small. A comment about how close we seemed, a raised eyebrow when he brought me coffee. I brushed them off, but the scrutiny grew. One day, a colleague cornered me in the break room. So, you and Blackwood, she said, smirking. What's the deal? There's no deal, I said, my tone sharp. He's my boss. She raised an eyebrow. Sure, just seems like you're his favorite. I forced a laugh, but her words lingered. The last thing I needed was office gossip jeoparding a fire I couldn't control. Damien noticed my tension. That evening, he pulled me into his office, closing the door. What's wrong? I sighed, leaning against his desk. People are talking. They think something's going on. Let them talk, he said, stepping closer. They don't know anything. But they could, I argued. If this gets out, it's my reputation on the line, not yours. His jaw tightened. I told you, I'll protect you. How? I snapped. You can't control what people think. He reached for my hand, his touch grounding. Then we're careful. We keep this separate from work. No one needs to know until we're ready. I nodded, but doubt lingered. Keeping secrets was exhausting, and I wasn't sure how long I could manage it. Our relationship evolved in stolen moments, late-night dinners at his place, quiet weekends away from prying eyes. Damien was patient, attentive, everything I hadn't expected. But the secrecy weighed on me, a constant reminder of the risks. One day, a new project landed on my desk, this time a collaboration with a rival company. The stakes were high, and the lead was a woman named Claire, sharp and ambitious, with a reputation for getting what she wanted. She took an immediate interest in Damien, her flirtations blatant and relentless. I tried to ignore it, but jealousy twisted in my gut every time she leaned too close, her laughter too loud. Damien brushed her off, but his charm only seemed to encourage her. One evening, after a particularly grueling meeting, Claire cornered me in the hallway. You're close to Damien, aren't you? She asked, her smile sharp. He's my boss, I said, keeping my tone neutral. She laughed, stepping closer. Come on, Silas. I'm not blind. But don't worry, I'm not here to steal your spot. I just want a piece of the action. My blood ran cold. There's no action to have. She shrugged, unfazed. We'll see. That night, I confronted Damien. Claire knows something. Or she suspects. He frowned, his expression darkening. She's fishing. She's got nothing. But what if she does? I pressed. What if she talks? Then we deal with it, he said, his voice firm. I'm not losing you over some gossip. His words were reassuring, but the fear lingered. Claire was a wild card, and I didn't trust her to keep quiet. The breaking point came during a company retreat, a weekend at a secluded resort meant to boost morale. Damien and I were careful, maintaining our professional distance, but the tension between us was palpable. Claire noticed, her smirks growing bolder. On the second night, after a team-building exercise, she pulled me aside. You're not fooling anyone, Silas. I saw you two sneaking off last night. My heart stopped. You're mistaken. Am I? She leaned closer, her voice a whisper. Tell you what, keep me in the loop, and I won't say a word. I stared at her, anger bubbling up. You're blackmailing me? Call it leverage, she said, smiling. Think about it. I didn't think. I walked straight to Damien's cabin and told him everything. His face darkened, but he didn't hesitate. I'll handle it, he said, his voice cold. Stay here. He was gone for an hour, and when he returned, his expression was unreadable. She's leaving the company, he said simply. Non-disclosure agreement signed. She won't be a problem. I stared at him, stunned. How? I have my ways, he said, a hint of a smile returning. No one threatens you, Silas. Not while I'm around. Relief washed over me, but so did guilt. I'm sorry. This is my fault. No, he said, pulling me close. This is on me. I should have been more careful. We stood there, wrapped in each other, and for the first time, I let myself believe we could make this work. The fallout from Claire's departure was minimal, thanks to Damien's influence. The rumors died down, and work settled into a new rhythm. Our relationship, though still secret, felt stronger, built on trust rather than just desire. One evening, as we lay in his bed, the city lights glittering outside, I turned to him. What happens when people find out? He propped himself up on one elbow, his gaze steady. We tell them. On our terms. I nodded, a weight lifting. Together. Together, he confirmed, kissing me softly. It wasn't perfect. There were still risks, still challenges. But for the first time, I wasn't running. I was choosing him, choosing us, and whatever came next. And as his arms tightened around me, I knew I'd never regret it.